This is the Sales Babble Podcast, episode 339, How to Sell with Persistence, an interview with Josh Roth.
Welcome to Sales Babble, the podcast that shares selling secrets for non-sellers. And now your host, Pat Helmers.
Hello, Sales Babblers. This is Pat Helmers. Today, our guest is Josh Roth. Josh is a senior business development manager at WalkMe. They're the makers of a digital adoption platform. And in this interview, Josh shares insights on the challenges of business development and his three-step process for connecting with prospects that fit his ideal customer profile. But before we get to the interview, I want to do a shout out to our sponsor, Sharetivity. They help salespeople increase prospect engagement by providing an easy and fast way to personalize your outreach on LinkedIn. Sharetivity, one-click personalization. And so, with no further ado, let's get to the interview. Welcome, Josh. Are you ready to babble?
Oh, I'm always ready to babble.
Well, I'm looking at your LinkedIn today, and I see that you're a senior business development manager for WalkMe. But the thing that really caught my eye was your motto. A river cuts through rock, not with its power, but with its persistence. What's that about? Why'd you pick that one?
Oh boy, you really dug into the LinkedIn. I love that. I absolutely love that. So that was my model when I first became a sales rep. So my very first role as an inside sales rep, one thing that I recognized early was it's so important that you be pleasantly persistent in your sales process. And the river cutting through rock, not with its power, but with its persistence, really spoke to me because it's not about twisting a prospect's arm in order to get a sale. It's about being pleasantly persistent and trying to add value at every part that you can within the sales process. And that's really what led to my early success as a sales rep. And that's why my motto's always been a river cutting through a rock.
I really like that because there's a similar quote from Lao Tse, the Taoist, that water is soft, but it can cut through the hardest of granite. And I've always seen sales just like that, just the same way that you can very softly, with time and patience, you can earn a win.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that sales is such a unique function of our business today because it changes so quickly. The average salesperson, whether they're a sales leader or a sales rep, has an average tenure of only a year and a half. And it really shows that it seems like we have patience in a number of our other functions, but not necessarily sales. And it's funny because so many sales cycles take at a minimum of 3 to 6 months in any non-transactional environment. And really showing that if you add value and are persistent, sales is just like any other function in that you can get wins.
Yep. Well, I should probably get to the main reason why I asked you to babble here today. You're one of the founding members of SDR Defenders, right?
That's right.
You guys commissioned a 2020 survey on the state of sales development. And there was some really interesting things in there. And I wonder if maybe you could share that with the audience, because we have a lot of SDRs listening to Sales Babble. And we've got sales reps who do biz dev and managers who manage all this. So what's going wrong and what's going right when it comes to business development, Josh?
Yeah, boy, that's a big question. I think one of the challenges that I've seen in my career and my experience is the incredible lack of patience that people have both within sales and outside of sales is a real challenge. And what I mean by that is I think that inside sales, you have reps and managers who don't necessarily respect the sales cycle. They want all of these quick wins, but they're not necessarily willing to build to get to those quick wins. And I think that's a huge challenge. And I think outside of sales, I think that people don't necessarily respect the function as really a function just like anything else. You have people that are leading product teams, and they are given a lot of leeway to build the product and build it right and build it over time. But with sales, people think, well, just go sell, when that's really not indicative of what sales looks like in 2020. And I think ensuring that people both inside and outside of sales have patience to understand that sales is just like any other function, and it really takes a build in order to do it right.
So how can managers, and I'm with you on this because WalkMe, they have a SaaS app for facilitating digital adoption, right? This is software, right, that you guys sell.
Yep, that's exactly right.
And these are long sales cycles. These are enterprise sales, right?
Yeah, our sales cycle in enterprise and strategic, it's certainly not a transactional sale.
Right. So if you have a lot of people, you have a lot of stakeholders, you have to deal with all that. So since these sales cycles are so long, how can sales managers manage that you're actually making progress on these deals, that they're advancing? And what advice do you have for reps and managers when it comes to this?
Yeah, I think really being the first thing that I would recommend is if you are an empathetic person, showing empathy throughout not only your sales cycle as a rep, but as a sales leader. Asking questions like, how can I help you? What can I do to make you better? Like, what are you looking to improve upon? Ensuring that your team understands that you want to help them develop. And on the back end of that, knowing, hey, like I want to help you in your sales process as well. Like, one of the things that I really respected a number of the other sales leaders at WalkMe is, we have our VPs, our directors, they're asking for our BDRs, SDRs, account executives to put them on calls with their prospects. They're asking to be a part of that process. And I think that a little bit of that is kind of like putting your money where your mouth is, right? If you're going to be asking your reps to be making these calls and sending these emails and driving these deals, you're now saying, like, I want to help and I can help, right? It's my firm belief that your sales leaders need to also be your best salespeople. And I think at WalkMe, that's something that we absolutely have. And that's not necessarily something that I've had throughout my career. I can really only think of one other organization I've been a part of, which is the New York Mets, where our sales leaders were also our best salespeople.
I've worked with a number of people where the founders of the company don't want anything to do with sales. They don't see themselves as the sellers. They think that's something they can just hire.
Yeah, no, it's funny. You are spot on. One of the things that I've read a couple of times over is, if you want to be a good founder and a good CEO, before you hire any salespeople, you need to go sell your product at least 5 times in order to understand what that process is like. And the company that I'm actually coming from, that was the biggest mistake that I saw, was that our CEO had never sold the product. So she really didn't have a good gauge as to what the sales product was like and what that sales process was like. And so I think for her, not having that understanding as to what goes into the sales process, and like really what the sales process entails and what it requires, both from a time standpoint as well as a value add standpoint, that was really missing from the entire organization. And it became really apparent after 3 months that there was a big divide between what she thought the sales process required and what it actually required.
Yeah, 5. I always think 10. That's what my recommendation is. The first 10 clients, the founders should earn them. Otherwise, and I agree with you, otherwise, how would you know how to hire somebody if you don't even understand what that process is like? One of the things that I see where companies fall apart too is there's this disconnect between of the lead gen marketing part of the company and the appointment setting and closing part of the company, marketing and sales. How do you think these organizations, what recommendations do you have in getting these organizations to work tightly together?
Yeah, I think that having a qualification process is really important. You know, I think that one of the big aspects of having a really good sales organization, and being able to really ensure that your leads are making their way through the funnel and are closing, right? Because if you qualify an opportunity, it only means so much if none of those leads end up closing. So using like an Anim, a Medic, a MedPick, a Bant, like using one of those qualification processes, I think is super important. And this is where I think this is another pitfall, I think, of early stage organizations where they they may have an understanding as to what, like, who is in their ICP, ICP being ideal customer profile, but they may not have a good understanding of what leads they should actually pursue. And in a company that I was at about 3 years ago, um, they really didn't have a great understanding as to what leads they should be pursuing. They would pursue a lead for 2 weeks, and then they would find that next new lead that looked great and pursue that for 2 weeks. And the focus was kind of all over the place. So understanding, I look at Anim as a good example, right? Saying, hey, early in the funnel, we're going to focus on the authority and the need, for example, right? And saying that's what we're going to focus on. And if we can find those two areas early in the sales process, and then later in the sales process, we focus on the budget and timing, right? And I'm making all of this up, but having the understanding as to what you want to focus on early in your cycle and then late in your cycle is really important to drive leads through the funnel and close.
But how does this work, though, in the context of marketing and sales working together?
Yeah, I think that marketing, having an understanding as to who's in your ICP and understanding the behaviors and where those people are located, is really important into kind of finding those leads and getting your MQLs. And then as you drive them through the sales process, that's where SDRs or BDRs can come into play and really qualify those leads at a deeper level to then throw them over the fence to your sales team who can work to really close those leads. It's going to look a little different in a transactional environment versus an enterprise or named accounts environment. But I think it's really important to have that qualification process along with the ability to where you want to find those specific prospects.
Of course, you hear all the time. I hear this like all the time. Like these leads are crap. Salespeople say that these are crappy leads. These are not. I can't call these don't make sense at all. And marketing's like, we're giving you perfectly good leads, and you get all this headbutting.
Yeah, it's funny. I was actually on a happy hour with some fine folks, Dale Dupree and Jason Vanna from Sales Rebellion, actually a week ago today. And one of the things that Jason, who's a former salesperson turned marketer, and I were discussing was the alignment between sales and marketing. And I think what you had just pointed out in terms of marketing thinking, boy, we're giving you amazing leads, and the sales team saying, these leads are crap. We need better leads. It really comes down to the alignment of those two functions, and ensuring that the marketing team has a really good understanding as to what the sales team is defining as a good lead. And I think that's where the SDRs and BDRs, that's where that role becomes so valuable. You need to ensure that the feedback loop is getting through to your marketing organization from your sales organization. So your marketing team is understanding what your sales team is defining as a good lead and what they're defining as maybe not so much of a good lead.
That's the thing.
Yep.
And I'm on a bit of a soapbox here. They need to listen because they're not the ones picking up the bloody phone.
Exactly. And I think that's what's so key is that's where I think, I saw I saw some folks saying like, oh, the SDR and BDR role, they need to stay in their lane. They should just make phone calls and emails. And I'm thinking, no, that is not what they need to be doing. They need to be, their role is so much more valuable. They need to be out there. They need to be getting that feedback, ensuring that feedback gets back to the marketing team so they really understand specifically what it is that the SDRs and BDRs are looking for in these leads, so that when they're asking their qualifying questions, when they're driving through those leads to that next stage in your opportunity, your marketing team understands what it is your SDRs and BDRs are doing, so that they can go out and find those kinds of leads.
Yep. The hardest part of sales, I believe, is getting that first sales appointment. And SDRs are critical for that. And I often feel like they don't get their due, which is, I believe, why you guys call yourself SDR defenders. You're trying to stand up for the little guys and gals out there, right?
Totally. And the reason SDR Defenders was created in the first place was exactly for this reason, right? I think that not enough attention is put on the importance of building out the top of the sales funnel. And the SDR role, you see these debates all the time. Should SDRs roll into sales? Should they roll into marketing? And it's because the SDRs as a function, they are so critical to building that top of funnel that there's a little bit of marketing, there's a lot of sales, but there's also this importance of the feedback getting back to both your sales and your marketing organizations, that role is inherently incredibly valuable because the SDRs as a function have their foot in both functions, in sales and in marketing. And I think that despite having such a valuable role, SDRs are looked at sometimes and by some people as just, entry level employees that are meant to make as many calls and as many emails as possible. And to us as SDR defenders, they are so much more than that, and they do so much more than that. Kyle Coleman was talking about on Revenue Collective yesterday how you can actually redeploy SDRs into other functions in times of mission critical importance, like what we're dealing with right now with with our current climate. And I look at that and say, it's important that we as sales leaders, we as marketing leaders, understand the importance and value that SDRs bring to the table every single day, and ensure that not only we recognize that and build the SDRs to be the people, the employees, and the function that they can be, but also to understand that it's important to generate that feedback, because SDRs have this really mission critical information that if we just say, go make phone calls and go send emails, and that's all you're going to do, we as organizations are going to miss out on this mission critical information.
Okay, so I know we're running out of time here. So I wonder, before we go, to wrap this up, you've made a fair number of phone calls in your life, right?
I've actually made over 100,000 over the course of my career.
So what's the trick? What's the trick to getting somebody into a productive dialogue?
Boy, that's the holy grail, right?
That's why I asked. I didn't ask you what shoes you wear. I'm asking you what.
So it's for me, I think it's the three things that I think I focused on in my career were being empathetic and authentic. It's really important to me that if someone is going to work with me, if someone's going to is going to buy from the organization that I'm representing, it's really important that I understand their situation and they understand that I'm being empathetic and authentic with them. That was kind of the first bucket. The second was, I think there's so much that's put into overcoming objections, and that's super important. I don't want to degrade how important overcoming objections really is. But one of the things that I always looked at was, if it's not, if what you're selling, if your organization is not a good fit for your prospect at that time, okay, move on, right? There's no need to twist somebody's arm into trying to turn a no into a yes. That, every no you get, you're just going to get closer to a yes. So understanding that, there's always the next call. If this person is really, is really not agreeing with some problems that you may have identified in terms of why you've made that call, you can always move on to your next call. That's really important. And the third being that you're going to have good calls and you're going to have bad calls, and always iterating on your messaging, always looking to get better, and trying to be sure that just because the call that you're making right now isn't necessarily your best call doesn't mean that your next one is. Doesn't mean that your next one won't be. And I think that as a sales rep, that was sometimes hard for me to understand, but ensuring that you can control what you can control, in terms of working hard and in terms of understanding what you can about each prospect going into that cold call, going into that dialogue, is super important. And ensuring that you say thank you, right? I mean, one of the things that I actually made a cold call for a couple folks on my team, um, maybe a week and a half ago. And I got this woman on the phone, and I would probably rank this cold call for me as like a 2 or 3 out of 10. But I had a great conversation with this woman, because even though I was kind of stumbling over my pitch and it wasn't the best cold call I've ever made, um, I was thanking her for her time. I was offering some experiences I had had with organizations similar to hers, and because of that, I was being authentic with her. I was being as empathetic as I could. I was thanking her for her time. We had a great conversation, and she gave some really great information as to how we could continue the process and what the best next steps would be. And I think that that's always something that you're not always going to be at the top of your game. You're not always going to hit a home run, but even in the times where you get a really tough pitch to hit, and you're trying to hit a curveball with 2 strikes, that sometimes the best thing that you can do as a salesperson is to just foul off that pitch and live to see another pitch. And I think that's where sometimes I encourage my team is, you're not always going to be on your A game, and that's okay, because sometimes the best you can do is to just go to that next prospect and have a better call.
So if you were a manager, I'm going to go back to like the very first question about measuring and managing your sales reps, that if they had metrics tied around empathy, ability to not waste time on unqualified leads, and to constantly be iterating on the message and growing, those are the metrics if you were boss, right? Those are things that you'd be looking for in your people.
Totally. And what I try to do with each person that's on my team is really be able, it's always tough to build like KPIs around empathy, but it's a lot easier to encourage reps that are a little bit more seasoned to work with newer reps that might be not as seasoned, to help them build, help them grow, and help them get better, to show that empathy and that willingness to help. I think that it's helpful to both people in that situation to build the relationships between both the sales leader and the sales rep, as well as between the 2 sales reps. And the other, beyond just your typical KPIs of kind of hard work, which is going to be your classic like dials and emails.
Josh, how can people find you online? People want to reach out to you and connect with you and keep this conversation going. How can they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. I love to connect with people on LinkedIn. So please, like, shoot me a connection on LinkedIn, and if you're up for it, shoot me a message saying that you listen to the podcast here. Anything like that, it just makes my day. So please don't hesitate to do that. I love LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn multiple times every single day. So don't hesitate to reach out.
You want to do a shout out for WalkMe?
Absolutely. One of the awesome parts about WalkMe, and one of the reasons why I came to WalkMe in the first place, was the product is so unbelievably incredible. it can really be used in a number of different ways. And beyond just the product, beyond how cool the product is, like the sales team at WalkMe is really beyond incredible. I know I shouted out the WalkMe team maybe on the second question, I want to say, maybe the first question, but really the sales culture at WalkMe is so.
You're in the honeymoon phase still, maybe.
Oh, absolutely. And the salespeople at WalkMe, from everybody from the people on my team in the BDR organization through to the SDR team, the account executive team, our sales leaders, like everybody is such an unbelievable salesperson. And one of the really great parts that I've seen at WalkMe is account executives become sales leaders, BDRs become account executives. There's so much internal growth that's promoted, and you just don't always see that. And that's what drew me to WalkMe, and that's why I enjoy being at WalkMe so much, beyond just how cool the product is.
All right. Well, you said you had a hard stop like 4 minutes ago, so I feel kind of bad about this, Josh. But I really appreciate you babbling here on Sales Babble.
This was an incredible chat. Thank you so much for reaching out and allowing me to chat both about WalkMe and SDR Defenders, but about the sales process. I mean, I'm just a complete sales nerd. So anytime I get the opportunity to talk with someone like yourself about sales is just so awesome and so appreciated. So thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah. This is one of my favorite topics. You've been great. Thank you, Josh, for babbling on Sales Babble.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me.
Sales starts with getting your prospect's attention. Given all the noise, you have to be different. You have to personalize your outreach. Unfortunately, it's time-consuming to go to Google, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube to find an icebreaker. It's a conundrum because personalized outreach converts significantly higher than canned emails. Picture the possibility that with one click, you could get a social footprint of your prospect, which would make personalized outreach faster. With Sharetivity, you instantly discover personal information regarding your interests, college, and social media posts on LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. With Sharetivity, you can make each outreach personalized, yet fully automated to fill your pipeline. Sharetivity is a Chrome extension. Search for it in the Chrome Web Store. It only takes 2 minutes to download, and soon you'll be skyrocketing your prospecting productivity today. Sharetivity. One-click personalization. To learn more about our guest, go to the show notes at www.salesbabble.com, and you can find this episode and all the show notes for past episodes right on the homepage. Now, one of the best ways people hear about Sales Babble is from listener reviews. If you could go to your favorite podcast app and leave us a 5-star comment, that would be really great because word of mouth is how podcasts spread. If you have a question or a comment about this episode or any episode, don't hesitate to reach out by clicking on the Babble Me button right on the website. Love to hear what you think. That's all we've got for today, so until next Tuesday, take care and have a highly successful and a profitable selling day.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Babble podcast. Find us at www.salesbabble.com.
This is a production of Habanero Media.